today I thought we could have a look at some art advice TikToks and see if they're any good or if you should probably not listen to TikTok. Draw your grid in your background color as well as a rough sketch. Final sketch in a darker opposite color. And so then they paint it blue with like a wash or like a light layer, and you can see the orange peeping through. I've never seen this before. This is really clever. Props to them for coming up with this.
How I improved as a self-taught artist, from this to this.
Wow.
1. Abandoning tracing references and pictures, and focusing on only drawing things by hand.
This is true. I recently tried tracing a few poses, and though it was quicker, I think the fact I've never really traced has really improved my artwork.
2. Studying anatomy with 3D models instead of just pictures.
That's really interesting. I've actually not done this much. What they show in this video actually is this, which I found really interesting because when they said 3D models, I thought of those like anime ones. But this is definitely a lot more helpful. I think that's really helpful.
Since you guys seem to be very interested in how I start my sketches, I wanted to explain it a little bit more. I actually started doing this when I started to do character design, and I would start off my characters by designing them through silhouettes, which helped me, make them more iconic and get a feel of the character a lot better.
Oh, wow.
Our brains are actually really good at recognizing silhouettes.
This is amazing. I think this is a really good tip, especially for anatomy and drawing like multiple people. I feel like this could be quite good as well, because you can plan out your piece and where each character is standing. I think this is sick. Tips for artists. Sketching. Line weight. It allows sketches to have more depth. Thicker lines equals shadow. That's definitely true. That looks good. So they recommend using kind of darker, more muted colors for sketching, and I definitely agree with this. I think a lot of people use that kind of like darker colors instead of black for their line art as well. I think these are some really good tips.
Boring compositions and stiff characters. I've been struggling to create interesting compositions, so I tried to use the golden triangle guide to make my illustrations more interesting. Here's what I drew for my client without using any guides. I think the character is cute, but I was really unhappy with how stiff it looked. Now let's see if the golden triangle helps at all. Starting the illustration, I imported a guide for the golden triangle. I did my best when sketching a pose to align the spine, the arms, and the general silhouette of the character with the guide. I didn't want the—
I think it is just a more interesting pose. I don't know about the golden triangle. Like, whenever I've tried to use it, I've run into problems. Maybe they're right. What do you guys think?
I'll show you how to improve your colors using this palette and this palette trio. But first, let's talk math. In language, Zipf's law states that the most frequent word occurs twice as often as the second most frequent word. And while there are no rules in art, what if we think about Zipf's law in terms of color palettes, with the most frequent color occurring twice as often as the second most frequent color, following that pattern down to the third, fourth, and fifth color? You'll see a lot of art, intentional or not, follows this idea.
That's so interesting. I've never really noticed that. I think that's so cool. I love this video idea where she applies like a mathematical concept to drawing. I always really like when creators do that.
You should be referencing dynamic poses. Choosing material that's easy to depict can certainly feel nice and cozy, but it's also more likely to produce a study that turns out stiff and boring.
I don't know if that's stiff, man. That's amazing.
Using a dynamic pose like this sure is scary, but it allows you to pull out so much more emotion. And the challenge will help you grow into a more capable artist.
Oh, wow.
And that's why you should be referencing
really
dynamic.
Cool. I completely agree with the... Is it a meerkat? No, wait. Is it a raccoon? I don't know. I agree with that creature. 100%. Unpopular tips for artists that I wish I knew sooner. Never zoom into your art too much during early stages. I think this is really good advice. I see a lot of beginner art online which is really nicely rendered, but it's clear that they zoomed into a section to render it and then kind of forgot about the rest of the drawing. And I often do that with paintings. you can see that bit of Big Ben is very done and this isn't. Unlike with this one, which I've done, oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm shaking the camera, which I've done more recently, and I try to like focus on getting the general shape first. It definitely just makes you a better artist, and it makes you focus on the things that really matter. This is a little less popular, but don't start a sketch right off the bat. Use shapes and flow lines to structure the anatomy, and always have a pose in mind. I can definitely agree with this as well. In my like art tips video, I covered how I used to really neglect deciding on a pose until I kind of started the drawing already. So I draw the body and then I like position the hands afterwards. That's true. And again, I think adding a lot more color variation, it's something I've also been working on recently, as well as adding texture. My art is very, very smooth. When drawing eyes, make sure the lashes are going in more or less the same direction. That's true. I would say these are just different styles. I kind of like the one on the left there as well. I think that's definitely true if you're going for a more realistic look though. Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of drawing hands like that. Breaking hands down does make it a lot easier. However, I do think simplifying them sometimes is also good. The first drawing is fine, but I do see what they mean. Art things I've picked up over the years that have helped me improve. Pick and choose advice, don't accept tips blindly. That's definitely true. A lot of people just comment things for the sake of commenting and they don't actually know more about art than you. Yeah, I think definitely watch out for who you're listening to. Number 2 is consistency is key. I dedicate at least 3 hours daily for my personal art. I think that's amazing, but for a lot of people, especially for me, that's unsustainable. I'm someone who does 8 hours some day and then I do none another day. And I think for me that's a lot more sustainable, and I know that a lot of people aren't like me and this might be amazing for them. Number 4, efficiency. Learn to draw fast so you can spend less time finishing it. What I do is draw under a timer and repeat until it's to my liking. That's very, very interesting. I don't think you necessarily have to draw fast, but I remember learning about this like science experiment where they got a bunch of photography students and they put them into 2 groups. One had to take lots of pictures and the other one had to take like 5 really good ones. And the group that had to take lots ended up doing a lot better. So I do agree with this. I've never tried drawing with a timer. I think this is really interesting. Well, today's videos seem to be really helpful actually. Thank you so much for watching guys, and I hope to see you in the next one.